Hi, welcome back, and today we're going to train you on how to do manual invoicing. So the procedure has two different options that you can take in order to do the manual invoicing, and the choice is really yours. Obviously, when you log into Synaptic, you come into your View Policies page, as we have explained in the previous video. But what we want you to look at now is that if you have the permission and you are a policy administrator or an accounts administrator, you will also have a button to this daily recon. Now, there are two ways to do manual invoicing. You either go into the client administration, assume a client, and go process month end, or you're going to go into daily recon. Now, what's the difference here? The difference here is that when I hit daily recon here, it goes into the screen you're seeing on the screen now, and it's going to list every single pending policy across all your dealerships. So this is very convenient if you know what you're up to. And now I can sort here by dealership name, or I can sort by a client number, or I can sort by a product name, for example. So usually we sort it for you by dealership name, so you can go and do a dealership at a time, and just this keeps refreshing. So you just keep going until your invoicing is complete. Regardless, remember that most of your invoicing will be going through DeBella or VAPS Consulting, and that video will be coming up shortly, and you'll be able to go and review that. But for those policies that are not going through DeBella or VAPS, you can do it in this particular fashion. So let's say you've got a brokerage or a dealership that is only doing non-underwritten product, and you've got to invoice them. This is the way that you'll end up doing it. Now, both work in exactly the same way once you've selected the policies, but what I'm going to first do is I'm going to go back to View Policies, so Setup Screen. So we're going to first start off by showing you the old-fashioned way of doing it, which is kind of legacy, but some people prefer it. So you're going to go into this tab here called Client Administration. Now from here, you cannot just go ahead and process something. It's going to scream at you saying, please assume a client, because here you are effectively working as if you are the dealership. So we need to configure the client, and you need to now pick what dealership you are going to work under, and we're going to do Llewellyn's Motors because that's where the product was sold. We're then going to save that. It'll say assume client now. You say yes, and again in your title bar you're going to see there that you are under or working under the guise of Llewellyn's Motors. Now you can click on process month end. Now what will happen immediately is that this will now pop up this particular screen, which is identical to the daily screen that I showed you earlier, but it's got the policy number, the client's name, and the information about what was sold. Now here you can either void it completely and click and save and return, and what it'll effectively do is just void the policy. It'll make it voided, you won't be able to search it, the client won't be able to claim, and there'll be nothing on risk. So that's if something was perhaps, just not working. Held over, if you click that button, you push save and return, it's just going to keep showing this policy every single time you go into it. And if you click on reconcile, then that's going to take you through to the invoicing process. Now, I'm not going to do it right here because it works identically on the other screen. The only difference about doing it through client administration is that I'm only ever going to see policies here for Llewellyn's Motors. If I do it through the other screens, so I go policy administration and I go daily recon, in the daily recon, as I've mentioned before, you are going to see all policies for all dealers that have not yet been invoiced. The only difference is your buttons are at the back. So decline in this case would be the same as void, so it's going to mark it as read or not taken up. And if you click on approve and you click on save and next, it's going to go through your invoicing procedure. Now what will effectively happen here, it's going to say number of policies in the invoice is 1. Now if you are doing more than one, this is your check mechanism. So let's say you've got a dealership, ABC Motors, that's sitting out there, and effectively what happens is you've got 10 policies to reconcile for them. This is where you're going to check that you've got all 10. At this point I can return without any failure, and I can come back in here and I can start the process again if I need to. We are going to click on approve and just move through the process. 1 is fine for us. Now, you've got the option here to either choose an automatic invoice number or a manual invoice number. So if you choose automatic, it's going to choose whatever invoice prefix and invoice that was assigned to you at the start. For now, I'm just going to go no, and I'm going to go TST001 because we've got a test invoice. Let's say we've done a manual invoice for this particular client, and you're going to select the date on which the invoice should have been raised. Now, it'll always default to today. Now, there's two options. Default to current month. If you have that option selected, it'll always select the day, time, now. But as we know, in some cases, sometimes the invoices are backdated, and you are allowed to backdate no more than 60 days from this particular date of today. So that is where we allow you to do. So this allows you for a little bit of cleanup if you've perhaps missed, a particular reconcile and it didn't come through, or it just wasn't picked up. You are allowed to go back and correct. However, the system will chop you off at 60 days and say no more than that, because that's sort of outside the limits of any accounting platform. So we're going to just say today's date. We're going to hit process. It now gives you a secondary confirmation. And this is going to say Llewellyn's Motors, you're going to do one policy. There are no cancelled policies, because it'll also tally up any cancelled policies that you've got, the reconciliation month, and the invoice number. And you will then hit save and return. It's going to say reconciling one of one, and what effectively will happen here now is that it will then say done. You say okay, and this will then reconcile, clear that, cellular has been successful, and it will then pop up the invoice if you did not select manual invoice like I did. So if you select automatic invoice number, it's going to pop up a PDF document that you can now save into your directory structure and then send on to the client. I didn't do that for purposes of our training. We don't have an invoice set up for Designer Solutions. But anyone who works on the system, and if you're being trained by a manager that has currently worked on the system, then they will be able to show you where the invoices are. But please make sure that when you speak to your invoicing, it tells me here where I'm saving it to. In some cases, depending on the client, you may need to save to a NAS drive or to a SharePoint, and I can browse and I can go either into my SharePoint or I can go into my desktop or documents, but please check with your IT company as to where you are allowed to save documents. In a lot of cases, you aren't allowed to save documents onto your local machines. So there'll either be a NAS drive, a bunch of disks, or you're going to have a SharePoint directory that you will then save this information into. And that is how we invoice our policies. So congratulations, we've got through another module. That's the manual invoicing process. As I said, it works both on client administration and on the daily recon. And just remember, client administration, you're only going to see one dealer at a time, where under daily recon, you are going to see multiple dealers and every outstanding policy you've got all in one go. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next training.